Hello, FewCandy here, and welcome back to planetzoo, the beginner's guide. And we have one little change to talk about. First off, and that is that we have renamed Waterworld to Aquatica. Thanks to Jan B. Larson's suggestion there. Absolutely love this name. Quite a few of you upvoted it, and Julie also seconded it. I think it's a great name. It just about fits on our sign, just about. The A's are attached, so we're all good there. So we've got Aquatica now instead of Waterworld. Thank you so much to all of your suggestions which came in for that. And I know I said that we'd probably get onto transport this time, but I'm really seeing this glaring hole here, which I also mentioned in the last episode, and would like to fill this out really before we come onto our transport network. Just going to start with a station down here and run through a habitat here. And I'm going to get quite obsessed with making all of our habitats to make our train journey really wonderful and beautiful and interesting once we've got that in. So I'd like to just fill out this area quickly before we come on to that. And there were lots of great suggestions for what we could put here. I know a few of you suggested hippos of some description. Hippos need a massive habitat. We just do not have enough space here, unfortunately, for those. Pygmy hippos was another great suggestion which we could have put here. But there was one suggestion from Ben which really stood out to me, which was potentially trying to create a bit of a petting zoo area, which would also then hide a lot of our staff facilities going out into the back here. So this may be a little bit of a stretch on our petting zoo idea because frankly there's not very many good animals that could be petted in this game, but we are going to go for llamas. So you can see here they're domesticated, and okay, yes, they come from mountain sides in South America. We haven't got any mountains here. But this is going to be very similar to actually a kind of a zoo that I take my children to, which has llamas in it. Where it's just a nice flat square pen for the llamas essentially, but a nice big open space that they can run in at least. But it's not going to be a super interesting habitat. It's going to be nice and simple. We're going to utilise the barriers that are built into the game. So this will be a habitat that will be good for any of you who are a little bit afraid to use those null barriers. I would say experiment with them because look at the rest of the zoo and the results that we can get from them are fab. But you can also use just the built-in standard barriers and use them in really inventive, nice ways. And the purpose is that guests can go into it and maybe feed the llamas. So there's like a feed the llama booking session, which is where I'm fitting in this petting zoo vibe into it. They're going to pet the llamas because they're just about the best species we can find to do that with. And the reason why I've chosen them is because they're confident with humans, guests can enter the habitat, so we can do all those things and make it appear the way we want to and give it the illusion of essentially a llama petting, feeding area by including them. So they're good animals for that. We're also actually going to go for a female bachelor group today as well, which is not something we've done in the zoo so far. We usually go for the mating groups. So we're going to have to keep an eye on our population of llamas. As soon as one passes away, we're going to be needing to replace it because we're not going to have that continual cycle of babies being born to repopulate our little llama habitat. So we'll have to keep an eye out for that. And they're also nice and straightforward on the barrier side of things. We just need 2 meters at grade 4, so no problems there, no water required or anything like that. So alongside the llama habitat, I'd also like to create a little bit of a hut over here where you could imagine people can come to pet some of the smaller animals in the zoo. So I'm thinking if they did have, for the likes of rabbits or guinea pigs or something like that, they'd bring them out and put them on the tables and people could come round and stroke them or that sort of thing. Maybe a tortoise actually even would be a good thing for that. So we're going to create the illusion of an area or design a little hut that would be for that purpose, if indeed we could actually make that purpose functional in planetzoo. So let's start by talking about our barrier for our llama habitat. And like I said, I am, for pretty much the first time since episode 1, going to utilise some of our standard barriers for this. Now they need grade 4 at more than 2 meters, so I'm actually going to go for this electric barrier, which probably sounds a little bit cruel, maybe, but this is what we're doing. So I'm going to place this down. I want to make sure that I'm running in 4 meter increments. 8 meters is fine, that's absolutely fine. So let's place this down here. And I want to be running kind of nice and parallel up against this hill to keep it relatively flat and square as we go across. So we're going to want to make sure that we're snapping into that 90-degree angle. So let's turn on angle snap definitely for this. I think we'll run across like that, and then let's maybe do a 4-meter section on the end here. And then we're going to go perfectly 90 degrees out this way and run up in 8-meter sections like so. Now I need to make sure that we have enough room here, which is really difficult to see with all of my trees, for our staff path to go across. So I think we're going to go like that, and then we're going to come across in 8 meters at a 45-degree angle, like so that we can fit that pathway through. And then we'll come across here again. But I'm actually going to right click away from that, click into this segment again, and we're going to come out at 90 degrees because I want to make sure this is really equal 4-meter segments for what we're going to do to decorate this up. Now I've lost where that fence has ended over here. I think it's about there. Yeah, so that is stretching a little bit more than we want, but that's okay. That's okay. And we can check the size of this, of course, by adding in a habitat gate. So the staff entrance is definitely going to be up here. We've got a staff room, we've got a keeper hut in here already. I think we're going to extend this out with another veterinary surgery and quarantine as well. So we will come on to that. Let's just, for the moment, snap this somewhere into the middle, like that. And then we'll connect up the staff path. So I have got one underneath our concrete flooring here. So we're going to come straight out of there, so as not to interrupt it, and run along this side, and then we can start curving it round to create a little bit more interest here. And we are going to go straight on because I want it to come around the side of the habitat as well, but we'll connect that in here. Now this, we'll deal with that later. Around the trees, getting that round could be somewhat interesting. So we'll come back to that. But now with the habitat gate, of course, we can click on this, check the terrain size. Okay, we've got 1,500 meters. We only need 750. There's not going to be huge amounts of buildings or things kind of blocking it in here, so I'm absolutely fine with that. Now I do also want to make sure that guests can see into the habitat. So let's actually just create a really small 4-wide path that's going to run along this side of the barrier. So now we don't want to get too close because we've got an electric fence here, which I feel like would be a little bit of a dangerous thing for guests to be anywhere near. So let's try and keep it as parallel as we can to this main path and to the barrier as well. And then we'll just very simply curve this back in like that, and also down this end like that. So it just creates that little segment off our main path for guests to come up and view the llamas from the outside of the habitat. Now the second part of this, of course, is we want guests to enter. So let's go ahead and place in a guest gate already, and I'm going to place it slightly further back here so that it's slightly more hidden away behind our petting zoo area, so that it isn't kind of the first port of call that guests come to, and it's much more of a, you need to book to go and feed the llamas, and this is the gate entrance that you can go in from. Now we'll come back to that in just a second, but I do just want to start by showing one very, very simple idea that we can do to make this fence a hell of a lot more interesting than it actually is right now. And that is by just very simply adding a wall piece to the bottom of it. So if we come into here, there is a wooden wall panel that I have in mind, which is the log wall. Because we've done this all in 8-meter increments, or at least multiples of 4, it should be now nice and efficient for us to come in and put this in the bottom of our fence. So we're literally just going to cover up half of our fence with this log wall. But the key thing is, obviously, we want to make sure that it's as parallel as possible to it. It doesn't matter if it's slightly off, because we can always pull the barriers back if we need to. So if we place this down, if we say editing group, we press exit here, we'll go back to our singular piece. And then we can go to advanced move and rotate. And let's move this right into place before we put too much else in. So here we can move it right up against the barrier. I want it kind of halfway in the barrier, like the electric part of the fence is sticking out the top of it. So that looks pretty good to me. We also need to be conscious of this end as well, because we come back, we double click on this now, we're back into editing this group. We can take this piece and duplicate it again. Let's turn it around, and then you can see where this is going to sit on this side. Now that isn't perfect, so let's exit the group again. We'll go to advanced move, or click X on your keyboard, and we can just move it into place from this position as well. So all in all, that's not too bad. That's not too bad. So let's press tick on this, double click to get back into our group, duplicate the piece, and then we can just run this all the way along our fence, all the way around our habitat. Now on this diagonal section, I'm just gonna try and do something. I might need to delete these trees. In fact, yeah, let's delete these trees so that we can actually see what on earth we're doing here. So let's come into here, we'll press edit barrier. I'm gonna grab this section. I'm gonna move it so we can try and get a nice just straight line from one point to the other. Which if we make sure angle snap is on, is relatively easy to do. And then what we can do is grab our wall piece here, let's duplicate it, and then we'll press exit group so that we're no longer stuck to the frame or the grid shape of that group that we were in. And then we can start to follow this across with our wall this way. So that doesn't line up perfectly, but that's okay. What we can do now is grab this piece, and then we're going to say split from group here. Then we're going to go into advanced move, and I'm just very simply going to move it back with X so that it is nicely lined up there. And we can do exactly the same thing here over our keeper gate. So let's grab this piece, say split from group, advanced move, or press X on your keyboard, and then shift this back so that it's the other side of the gate. Now I'm thinking we're actually going to put a kind of stable area in here, so this may not matter in the long run anyway, but if you didn't want to do that, then this is how you can do it. So split it from the group and then advanced move. So now we have got the wooden structure all the way around. Our fence is slightly off from it because we just haven't got that quite perfect angle. So what we can do now is just move our fence posts back in line with our wooden structure. We just carefully go around and do all of this, and then it will be absolutely perfect. There we go, already that looks a lot better and a lot more realistic than just having that electric fence with no decoration whatsoever. So I'm kind of pleased with that, and that is a super easy, simple thing to do to jazz up those already existing barriers if you're a little bit more afraid to get into those null barriers and your own kind of detailing with that. Okay, so we need to move our llamas in because we're getting warning notifications about them. So if we come into animals and filter by llamas, we can select all of them, click move, and then add them to our habitat here. Now, of course, I do want to get another staff member, so let's hire a keeper. We'll put him out here so he's not too far away. And then we're going to go to work zones, create new work zone, pause the game so he doesn't walk away. Let's click on this habitat. You also want to click on this staff room and the keeper hut. That's research center, keeper hut. So let's get rid of that. So we've got a keeper hut and a staff room and our habitat in here. And we can rename using this little button to llamas. So now we've got that in our work zone list, and that should be absolutely set up fine to function like that. Let's grab our keeper before I forget. We'll come to employment in here, and we'll come down here and select work zone llamas under his employment tab. And there we go. Okay, so let's talk about some of their basic needs. So I've filtered by llama here, and their temperature range is absolutely fine for what we've got, so we don't need to worry about the heaters and coolers that we spoke about last time. But we do want some food troughs for them. So I think it'd be nice to have this here where the guests can actually see it. So let's go for one there. We are going to want a water pipe. You could use a water trough, but honestly, they're just kind of annoying. So I prefer to use the water pipes hidden away somewhere, because the water troughs do rely on your keepers coming up to refill them. And they don't always do that, I'll be honest. Even though we are operating a one keeper per habitat pretty much policy in the zoo, it still doesn't really happen. So we'll put that in just a second. I'm going to hit pause for the meantime until we do get that in. In terms of enrichment as well, we can add some like nice herb scent markers around the place. So let's have one over there, for example. Have another one here so the guests can see it. Maybe really kind of close to the barrier would be quite nice. Then we'll also add in a block of ice somewhere. Again, we can reposition all of these. If we hold shift on our keyboard, we can drag it down a little bit so that the marker is actually hidden underground and you don't get those horrible looking grey plates everywhere. So that's another little trick with these enrichment items. Let's also put this somewhere as well, whatever this is, boxing ball. Again, we'll hold shift to cover the grey plate underneath the ground. And then we'll leave that there like that. So that's all the enrichment we've got at the moment. We do want to set up a vet to research them, which we will do as well. We have got a bit of progress on our Danube, crested newt and grey seals. That's good news. So let's now we'll add Wendy to the llama and get those all researched up. So we've got some better enrichment items there. But then let's just talk about shelter quickly. So I am actually going to use one of our blueprint shelters here because I want to show you how you can use blueprints if you want to in your zoo, but also edit them a little bit to make them fit exactly what you want and to add your own kind of perspective onto it. So now I'm actually going to use the Australia shelter. We're going to forget that it's an Australia theme. I just like the look of this, the sort of slightly run-down roof and the red on it. I feel like it makes for quite a nice little stable. And we're going to add it into this back corner here. So what I do firstly want to do is just align it as best we can with our barriers that we have going on here. We want them hidden, but close to it. So something like that is absolutely fine. Then let's hold shift, and I'm actually going to drag it into the ground a little bit because I don't think it needs to be as high as it actually is here. So we're just going to hide a little bit of the base in the ground to make it a little bit lower, like that. Now what we can do here is now come into this group. Because this blueprint is just simply materials that we would ordinarily use to build, we can now come into this blueprint in this group and start actually editing it a little bit. So with this one, for example, I'm going to split it from the root because we need to make way for our keeper gate. And I'm going to just shift this over a little bit and align it up as best we can to the panel pieces on the top there. So something like that. Let's click tick there. And now we can come back out to this outside part and let's click edit barrier. We'll come to our gate and let's just move this across so that it's nice and central in that open gap that we've got. Or actually we'll align it to the end that we've already adjusted there to make this a little bit simpler. So like that. We'll then need to come in and reconnect this staff path. So let's just go ahead and get that connected in. And in fact, actually, before we do that, I am going to come in and just delete out these little wall pieces that we've got going on around here because we don't really want those sticking out of the outside. Let's come back in, we'll edit barrier, and we'll just move these ever so slightly further towards the buildings so they're hidden in the walls here. And same goes for this side too. Let's just pull them in to the side of our habitat here. We can keep the electric fence over there. I'm quite happy with that because they do also need a 2-meter barrier to keep them inside. So that would kind of make sense. And then let's just come in and delete these wall pieces back. And actually that's lined up pretty nicely there too. So if we come back to the inside, we do need to get another wall piece here. So let's click on this one. Let's click duplicate. And then we're going to actually just change the grid size down to 2 meters. No, down to 1 meter. And then, yeah, we can snap that in nicely next to this gate here. We do, however, let's exit that group, just want to move this a little bit. Now, if you're having issues with those sticking out through the walls, you could just go ahead and upgrade this to a null barrier. Click on that post and click null. It'll get rid of it. So we'll click null there as well, and this section. Yeah, so that's done it. So we shouldn't be seeing those anymore from an outside perspective. And let's once again connect to our staff path after we've done that, just like so. So now here at the back as well, we can also take one of these walls here. Let's duplicate that. And then if we make the grid height's already on 1 meter. So let's just hold shift and drag this down so it's on top of the door there. So it's pretty close to it. We could go even a little bit further by saying split from group and then hitting X on our keyboard. And then we can drag it down just to touch right on the top of that door like that. So this gives us a really huge, very nice looking barn that we have managed to customize to fit our barriers there. So kind of pleased with that. We've also got the electric fence running across that bit to keep it at 2 meters. So if we click play briefly now, let's just check that there is no opportunity for escape, and there is not. They can fit underneath there, so that is all good. So now all we want from a sleeping point of view is some bedding in here. So let's go ahead and add this, and then we can talk about the walkthrough section. Oh, we're not forgetting, we can also hide our water pipe back here. Now, if you didn't want to do the water pipe, you could put in a very low water source. So actually, I think we will do that because this pipe's pretty ugly. So let's just show that here. If we go to terrain, Let's go to sculpting, push, let's turn the intensity right down, let's say to 15%, that's fine. We'll make this just a little bit smaller here too. And let's just push this very slightly down in this location here. If we now come to water and do calm water, they have now got a fresh water source in here, so they won't be complaining about water. Hydration is at 100%, we'll keep an eye on that. But as long as this is nice and shallow and they can access it, so again, we can check that if we click on the llama here. Yeah, see, they can actually even walk over that water, but they can now drink that and use that as a fresh water source. Provided, of course, it is covered by our water treatment plant, which somehow it's not, because we've only got a water temperature regulator over there. Yeah, and power. So we will need to put in a water treatment plant that covers this so that the water remains clean and drinkable for them. So we can go ahead and do that and place this in somewhere in our staff area. Let's just place it here for now because we'll come back to redesign that. But now, you know what? The llamas are actually happy because they've got enough of each terrain without really doing much. I've just added some soil and a bit of sand into their stable area over here. And they've got enough of everything to keep them happy. They don't actually need any plant coverage. So you can leave it at this and say job done because the llamas are happy. But I honestly wouldn't recommend that. So we will put in a little bit of foliage and a little bit of rocks to make it slightly more interesting. Let's just check the size again. Yeah, there's way more than enough. So we've got plenty of room to put in some decorative rocks and that sort of thing. But like, honestly, for this habitat, I want to keep this pretty simple, just as a more of a farm area than actually a beautifully landscaped zoo habitat, if that makes sense. Now, I forgot the llamas spit, so that's not going to be very pleasant for these guys either. But there we go. Hopefully there's enough distance between the electric fence and the actual pathway to avoid having a llama spit in your face. So now I want to come on to how we're going to actually make this a meet the animals area. That's what I'm going to call it, and make it appear to be that kind of thing at least. So I've just moved these out the way for the moment. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab, I think, the logs round path. I think that's going to be quite a nice entrance into here. And I think I am just going to keep it as 4 meters. I'm going to be a little bit risky in this and hope that it's not too busy at the end of the day. And what we're going to do is we're just going to come straight out, kind of eyeballing as best we can so that it's parallel to the side of our llama habitat. And we obviously want to connect this up. So let's come right up to the end here, and then we'll start to bend it round and in like that. And then I think this side we're going to do what we did in the walkthrough otter habitat. We're going to place a railing or curb on the ground path even in our options here, just so that we get these nice little wooden stumps around this path. And I'm going to have the natural one so that it's sort of marked out with a little bit of sand here like this. I think we'll do a circle actually, so we'll keep it 4 meters. We'll come out straight like this, and then we're going to snap 90 degrees round in a circle like so, just to create that kind of open space area. And then if we do the same thing the other side, you'll see like that kind of gets us this little central feeding area. So what I'm imagining with this is that guests can come in and stand in this area, and this is where they can feed or stroke the llamas, whatever they're doing in their meet the animals activity here. But of course, to kind of help it make sense of it, we want to have some sort of picket area essentially, so that they're buying that experience. So if we come into facilities, if we go to guest facilities information, one cool thing is you can just buy the little information stands without the actual building around it. So this is pretty cool if you want to decorate your own and that sort of thing. So what we can do is create a nice kind of very bespoke little hut that doesn't have to be as tall as this building as well, because that's quite kind of tall and fancy. And it doesn't have to be as deep either. So if you notice the grid here, it's actually only a 4x2 grid in the centre there that is needed to cover this information stand. So really, really handy if you want to kind of create some smaller buildings in some slightly smaller areas and more bespoke look to it than what we have just by plopping in the main information centres. So I think what we'll do is we'll have 2 of these next to each other. So yeah, we'll plop them in just like that, and then we can build a nice little hut around it to decorate that out as the sort of main area where you can buy your experience from. And then what I want to do here is build a couple of little wooden shelters, essentially, with a few tables and boxes round that you could imagine people are going to bring the snakes out to, or the rabbit, if we had any, or the small critters and the handleable critters. So maybe snakes, yeah, if they're not too venomous or dangerous, could come out here. And actually I was thinking snakes is probably quite a good one, because the snake house is right here. Easy access to the staff path round the back here to bring them out to the meet the animals area. So that would be kind of a cool idea to have here. So that is what we're going to do there. I do just want to make sure firstly that we are connecting up our staff path round the back here so that we have got nice and easy access. So let's turn off curb on ground path again now that we're coming back to this. Yeah, we'll make sure we've got a 4-metre path. And then I want to try and snap this in as close as I can to the fence, which is going to cause us a few little issues here. Let's just see where we can come out. We can come out there. Again, if we hold Z on our keyboard, let's turn off angle snap for this. You can see we can get those nice bespoke angles. So we can have this coming pretty straight out and nice and parallel to our fence there. And then let's guide this round the outside of the habitat so we're connecting up nice and easily to where we're going to have a really large staff facility out the back here that we've already kind of started with that green shed in the background. Now, of course, I'm also going to want access around the back of these buildings to get through to our little water treatment and our electricity around the back here. So let's also place in a path like this that can get us there. Try and connect this in if we can. Yeah, just like that. And then we could probably add in some back doors, I think, to our little hut so that the keepers don't actually have to go onto the main public path here, the main path for the guests, and they could just come around the back and bring the snakes or the critters into the little hut from this side. So I think that would be pretty cool. So there's a lot of detailing to do around here, and I think that's what we're going to come on to now. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in a time lapse, but it is all techniques that we've talked about previously in this series. So if you want to get to grips more with building techniques, go back to episode 1 and episode 2 in this series, and we talk a lot about the X function, changing grid sizes and things like that there. And if you want to watch this in real time to see really closely what I'm doing, turn your YouTube playback speed down to 0.25% and everything will be in real time for you. And of course we'll come back at the end and I'll talk about exactly what we've done. Okay, so we have our little meet the animals area. Really big thanks to Ben for suggesting a petting zoo, which just gave me all of this inspiration. So I actually decided to add in some of the seating here to make this look like a little bit of a bird of prey show, maybe. Something like that. That's the inspiration from this random stick sticking out of the podium there. And I used the security cameras to make them look a little bit like speakers maybe for the event. I did toy with the idea of actually putting in a talk point here, in which case our guests would actually come and use this. But they're going to be really unhappy about it because they cannot see any animals from here. So I decided in the end it was probably best not to keep this actually functional. But I think this just works really, really well. A couple of little conservation signs here as you walk in for a bit of extra information around the talk. And then we've got our little, I'm going to call it a snake handling shelter, because we do actually have snakes in the zoo, where they bring the snakes in and put them in these boxes and you can walk in and round and handle them essentially. Really like all the staff exits as well. If we come back here, this is not detailed. But we have got doors on either side so the staff can come around this back bit and get into those back entrances for a little bit of extra realism there, so the snakes aren't coming through the main public path area. All blocked off at the moment because there is no event in progress. So I actually changed those little red barriers that I initially used for these green ones, and again these can just be found in facilities under bins, benches and security. Under the security tab you've got all of these guest barriers, and this does actively stop them from going in there. Obviously they're not going to go in there anyway because there's nothing in there, but I wanted to make it seem like the talk isn't on right now. So that's how it is. And then this roof, I did actually fix this slightly as well here, just to use the little roof edge pieces so it didn't stick out quite as far over the path either side. But I think this has come together quite nicely as a makeshift little wooden hut here for our ticket sales and information for the Meet the Animals area. And then of course you've got the walkthrough bit, and it's kind of cool because guests do come in here and they just stand in this area and then they walk back out. So far it hasn't been too crowded, but I am limiting the guests in my zoo now just to help with game performance and things like that. But it's worked out pretty well. The llamas are drinking from our pond, so we don't need that fresh water source because we've got clean water in here. Of course, if our water treatment does break down, we may have a bit of a problem. But hopefully we can keep on top of it with our mechanics. So yeah, there we go. Here we go, we got some guests coming in now to, we're going to say, feed the llamas. Or pet them, whatever it is. There's no zookeeper on hand. Oh, there is a zookeeper on hand, actually, with the food right now. Here we go. I hope they're supervising these guests. They're just coming in and walking straight out. But there we go. And actually having this as well, putting your food things right by the main place where guests are viewing really helps as well. Like a lot of the feedback from these are saying that the view is great for the llamas. We click on them, well, wow, this place looks great. Zoo is very spacious, well thank you very much. Okay, no one's talking about the llamas. When I checked this before, they were all enjoying the view because of course they're eating right next to them right here. So it does give them a really good view because all of the llamas come down here to eat their food. And one thing I would say as well is it's a really good idea to click on your guests and actually look at what their thoughts are, because that'll give you a good idea of what else you need to put in your zoo. So I've actually noticed a couple of guests have been complaining because we don't have any gift shops in our zoo. I'm just going to go and have a look what this llama's up to in the water here, the feeding bowl. I love these animals, I think they're really cool. So we really need to come in and put some gift shops in, which we're going to do next time, and I promise it will be next time with our transport episode. So we're going to build out a whole station which has some gift shops and some guest facilities in there. So we will absolutely cover that, but they work in exactly the same way as all of the food and drink and the information stand type shops. So yeah, there we go. This is working really quite nicely. Very simple things along the edge of the path. I actually just went for these stumps. I was debating putting little ropes in between them, but actually I kind of like this. It signifies where the path is, adds a little bit of extra character, I think, to the area. Bit of concrete flooring around here, just so this is a little bit cleaner around the display talk area. But that was it. And there's some makeshift tables just with planks and poles. And don't forget, you can do this for anything. So you can create essentially your own little props if they're not in the game, because yeah, somehow this game doesn't seem to have any tables in it whatsoever. Apart from, of course, the guest tables and the picnic tables. So you can make your own with some of the props, and there's lots of art shapes that you can do very, very creative things with. So yeah, just play around with them and see what you can come up with. Again here as well, I actually decided not to put a roof on this, and I really like this effect just with some simple poles at the top. Creates a really nice open talk area, particularly if it was a bird of prey. I imagine they're gonna, well, they've got really nowhere to go because we're surrounded by trees, but there we go, there we go. So now the llama habitat, if we're looking at it from a whole, I'm really like not pleased with it. I really tried to not put decorations in it, and then I think actually I made it worse by putting the rocks in right at the last minute. Yeah, I may take those out. I really wanted a plain open habitat, and the llamas are good for that because they don't need foliage, they don't really need anything much at all, to be honest, apart from their enrichment toys. So I just wanted to kind of demonstrate that you could do a very simple, very easy habitat and have it be quite effective. But I think it fits into our meet the animals area quite nicely, but it's clearly not as well designed or natural as all of our other habitats in the zoo. So it's kind of up for debate. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. I do like the barriers, however. I think this is a very, very simple effect here using the electric fence and then just covering up the bottom of it with some wall pieces. Super duper simple, but super effective. It looks so much better than just having that barrier there without any decoration on it whatsoever. So definitely try that out for yourself, try out different combos and see what you can come up with. So for today, that is going to be it. If you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated, and let me know what animal you would like to see opposite our Meet the Animals area, because we're going to have a train ride flowing right through there. So let me know in the comments below what you would like to see. I'm completely undecided on what this is. It needs to be quite a large habitat, so quite a large animal. Keep that in mind. Not African savanna, because that will be next to it, but you can make a suggestion on pretty much anything else. But that is all from me for now, so thank you so much for tuning in. While you wait for the next episode, please do check out one of the videos on screen. Otherwise, I will catch you again next time. Bye bye!